Oh, Pastor Greg, thank you so much for coming, for
My
making
pleasure.
yourself available for this little interview, conversation. Okay, let's see. We have 1 minute. I think we can start. Okay, so Pastor Greg is a pastor, a husband, a father of five. He is a Jewish believer in Jesus. There's just so much to talk about you, Pastor Greg. I don't know where to start. He is a doctor in ministry, right?
hmm
And he is currently serving as the Jewish pastor at Gateway Jewish Ministries, right? Pastor
Uh-huh.
Greg, can you share us a little bit more about yourself?
Um, I grew up Jewish. I grew up in the suburbs of New York City. I was bar mitzvahed just before I turned 13. The rabbi who bar mitzvahed me, Rabbi Arthur Hertzberg, was the president of the American Jewish Congress. So I probably am about as Jewish as anybody that you could ever meet. Um, and I feel awkward saying what I just said, but
Yes.
Paul did did talk about his own Jewish identity quite a bit in his writings, and so
Mhm.
I think sometimes it's probably a good idea to just put it out there,
It is a
and people
great
could do what
idea.
they want with it. The most important thing to me is Yeshua, Jesus.
Hmm.
I mean, he's
Yes.
everything.
And speaking of that, I would like for you to share a little bit your journey of like how you came to faith in Jesus, Yeshua.
Sure. So growing up like in Judaism, absolutely. But near the end of my high school time, I started to smoke marijuana, and then I went off to college, and then I became a real drug addict. I was just a mess. And I ended up dropping. I went to 4 years of college. After I dropped out of college, my dad suggested, "Why don't you join the Air Force? It'll make a man out of you." So I don't. Nobody expected what would happen, but was I was befriended by a an Air Force pilot, and he invited me to church, and I felt socially obligated to go, so I went. And and when I got there, I really experienced the presence of God, and I thought, okay, there's God's in this place, and he grabbed me, and it totally changed my life. And so, and I have been um, just completely. I wanted to become a preacher that day,
Mm.
uh, but um, but God just kept putting me off, and
Was
so
not time yet.
yeah. So
There's some work to
eventually, he
do.
gave me the choice. Like 10 years later, he gave me the choice. You can do it now, or you can do it later. And he
Wow.
gave me a choice, and I went for the now.
Mm.
Because if you give me a choice, that's what I'm gonna do.
Praise God. Okay, that's amazing. And then I have a question for you. It's a bit like, let's say it may sound a bit harsh, but when you did come to faith in Jesus, Yeshua, did you receive, like, how was it for your family and your Jewish family and friends?
It was hard.
Hmm.
Um, and honestly, I was surprised actually by how hard it was for them, but it really was. Um, my parents were not happy at all. But my grandfather was, one day my parents were all over me because of my faith, and I thought I was being respectful in the way I was responding. But my grandfather, my mom's dad, responded by literally putting his hands around my neck, like to
Wow.
choke me. And
Yeah.
it's and I loved this man. In fact, a few years later, we had our fourth of five children. I named this son after him. I mean, I love this man.
Mhm.
Always did, always have. And he was old at the time. He wasn't going to hurt me, but with his hands on my
Yeah.
neck. But he was very upset. And
Mhm.
I think it's easy to judge someone like that
Yeah.
without recognizing what he had been through.
Mm.
Basically, his entire family was killed in the Holocaust. And
Exactly.
so, and the Holocaust was it's a sad truth. I mean, I love the church,
Mm-hmm.
okay? But the sad truth is the Holocaust was engineered with Jewish theology, excuse me, with
Mm-hmm.
Christian theology.
Yeah.
And um, and the church was very much a part of what happened in Europe. Every Holocaust museum in the world will have a thing in it about the church's role in it. It just
Mhm.
is. So my grandfather knew that, and every Jew
Mhm.
knows that.
Mhm.
And so, how could you become one of them?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
I never held a grudge against him. I tell the
Mhm.
story because you asked, but I love my grandfather, like very much love my grandfather. He
Yeah,
was
yeah.
the man of my life as I was growing up.
Oh, I love that. Yes, and I did ask this question on purpose because of that, because the theme that I would like to talk to you about is about the history of anti-Semitism within the church. And I grew up as a Christian, and I had no idea that the church was involved in any degree with the Holocaust or with other Jewish persecutions. And I came to learn that later on, especially at TKU. And and then now I understand more why the Jewish people are so resistant to the gospel and to Jews believing in Jesus. And so I would like for you to please share also, like maybe teach us a little bit about the history of anti-Semitism within the church. If you can tell us some highlights about it. I mean, not highlights, but you know what I mean, like what's most important about it.
Yeah, I remember reading because when I was in school, I mean I graduated from Hebrew high school. I mean I really grew up Jewish, and I remember reading that, and it almost surprised me when I read this, but I thought about it. Well, it's true. With until 1948, for the last 2,000 years, Jews would rather have lived in any Muslim country than in any Christian country,
Wow.
with the exception of the United States. The United States was literally the only exception to that. Um, Muslims were comparatively, much kinder to Jews than the church had been. This is really hard. It's a hard truth, but it's true. There's like major books written in the last 50 years about Christian anti-Semitism, and thick books, like thick stuff. And so and the church doesn't know about it
Yeah.
because who wants to talk about the ugly history of your group, right? Nobody wants to do that. And so it's a hard thing to do. But, I mean, um, you know, we don't have to go very far back. You can go all the way back to the second century, and really see it. But
Yeah, and we
um,
have time, so if you want to go a little bit throughout the history.
well, Irenaeus
Okay.
was just, he was like the golden mouthed preacher, and he totally was like, get rid of the Jews. Justin Martyr he died in 165 AD and 160 AD. He's really the one that coined the term replacement theology, the idea that the church has replaced Israel. Well, replacement
Supersessionism.
theology is, or another word, a synonym, is supersessionism, and it's basically the undermining or the theology that is responsible for all Christian anti-Semitism. Um, so I'm not saying that the church is not like extremely important. I'm not saying that Jesus is not the only way. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. Um, Neither is there salvation in any other, for there is no other name in heaven given among men by which we must be saved. Absolutely. I believe that. Um, but but the idea that does not mean that the church has replaced Israel. The church has not replaced Israel. The church is the first church, if you will, in the first, second century was Jews and Gentiles, and within the church there were Jews,
Yeah.
and just like within the church, there's males and females. Okay, there's neither, but Paul says in Galatians 3:28, there's neither male nor female, Jew nor Gentile.
Mhm.
Okay, so I didn't stop being a man when I got saved, and you didn't stop being a woman when you came to faith, and I
Mhm.
didn't stop being a Jew, and you didn't stop being a Gentile. And
Yeah.
there are, in the same book that says there's one new man, talking about the Jew and the Gentiles, the same book that says the husband and the wife become one
Mhm.
new flesh. So this idea of oneness from Jew and Gentiles, Ephesians 2, and the idea of one between husband and wife is Ephesians 5. And so the one new man includes, I didn't stop being a man.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, throughout
and
all the Bible, we have like we see Israel and then the Gentiles who came to faith, but then supersessionism skips over this and just claims that the church superseded Israel, and now it's just I don't know
and
it
it becomes
diminishes. Yeah.
it's really honestly it's cursed thinking.
Hmm.
For example, and why do I say that? I'd never said it until just now, like that. But the reason why I would say that is because there is neither Jew nor Gentile, male nor female, but I'm still a man. And the curse would say the man is superior to the woman. That's the curse in Genesis chapter 3. The man is superior to the woman. The curse would say the woman is superior to the man. Superiority.
Yeah.
But the fool says there's no difference between a man and a woman. There is a difference, and it is to be celebrated. A wise man wants his wife to celebrate her femininity in front of him. And a wise woman wants her husband to celebrate his masculinity in front of her. So the fool says there's no difference, but
Yeah.
superiority is the curse. And so it's the same way with the Jew and the Gentile. I won't use the word fool, but sometimes it is, but I think it's more likely almost always just the ignorant. The ignorant, the person who does not know,
Yeah.
thinks that there's no difference between a Jew and a Gentile.
Yeah.
But the curse would say that the Jew is superior, or the curse would say the Gentile is superior. And that thinking has been the undermining or the undergirding of all Christian anti-Semitism, and there's a lot of it.
Mhm.
And I mean, and there's so many places to go. Like, we
Yeah.
only have however long we have, so I'll throw one or two of the most obvious things out there.
Yes.
Every Jew knows these
Uh-huh.
stories that I'm about to. One was Martin Luther, but
Mm-hmm.
most of the churches just they don't know anything about Martin Luther. They
No.
celebrate,
Yeah.
who he is and what he is, and
Like a
and
hero of the faith. That's what many believe.
right. And I'm not saying that he didn't do a lot of good things for the faith. I
Yeah.
definitely wouldn't say that because he did.
Mm-hmm.
But Martin Luther, he actually wrote a book in 1543. This is relevant to us today as we sit here
Mm-hmm.
right now. In 1543, he wrote a book that's called On Jews and Their Lives. And in this book, he actually gave 7 bits of advice on what to do with Jewish people. Martin Luther. Number one, burn their synagogues. Number two,
Oh.
destroy their houses. Well, the Nazis didn't destroy the houses of the Jews, but what they did was they took them.
Mm-hmm.
And as I go through these, I think what I hope people will hear is
Yeah.
actually what Hitler did was he intentionally implemented the specific ideas of Martin Luther, so
Mm-hmm.
that Martin Luther is the theologian of the Holocaust.
Wow.
So, number one, set fire to their synagogues and schools.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, destroy their houses. The Nazis just took them. Number three, burn their books. Well, you've got famous pictures of them burning Jewish books in the streets. Number four, forbid their rabbis to teach, and if they do, mutilate their bodies or kill them.
Wow.
Now, this is Martin Luther.
Yeah.
Okay. And then number five, don't let them walk on the streets. Well, the Nazis weren't even as strict as Martin Luther because the Nazis did let the Jews have 2 hours a week, odd hours, not good hours, but 2 hours a week where they were allowed to walk on the street for different things. But Luther said none at all. And Luther said you should take all their silver and gold for them. So what did the Nazis do? They took the gold right out of Jewish people's teeth.
And what does
And
that have to do anything with the gospel, with
nothing. Right?
nothing?
Yeah. And then the number seven was make them slaves, give them a flail, an axe, a hoe, a spade, a distaff, or a spindle, and put them to slave labor. And they had signs over the concentration camps as you entered that said Albach macht frei, which means work makes you free. They were slave labor camps. And if you couldn't work, they just killed you. The reason why I said that is relevant today
Mm-hmm.
is because his book on Jews and their lies was actually it's been in print forever, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But as recently as 2014,
Mm-hmm.
I remember looking on the website on the internet and saw the book on Jews and their lies. It was
Wow.
being reprinted again and sold by Tex Mars.
It's
Tex Mars it
unacceptable.
has three number one Christian best-selling books, and he reprinted, published it, and on Google Books today you can still look to see what he wrote about it. And this is what he wrote. I actually have it right here in front of me. Martin Luther, one of the greatest champions of the Christian faith ever to live, wrote this amazing book to warn Christians about the darkness of the Jewish religion. That's the
Wow.
beginning of the
Wow.
paragraph. And the last sentence in the paragraph says this. It says, on the Jews and their lies is Luther's magnificent defense of Jesus, the Messiah, and his expose of the unfounded lies and accusations of the rabbis. So he is celebrating this book in 2014. It's like,
Like
so
I
this
can't
is
believe
actually
it's still
relevant.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's crazy. Imagine it is still happening. It's like this is crazy, but everybody knows, for example, about George Floyd. Horrible thing. He was killed in May of 2020 in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Horrible story. And in no way am I diminishing the significance of this story. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I'm fully saying this is a horrible story, what happened.
Okay.
Okay. The next day, protests broke out across America, and some of them got pretty heated across
Yeah.
America. That started in May of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember
Okay.
that.
On October 7th, 2023, okay, it wasn't George Floyd. Remember George Floyd? It was horrible, but I feel awkward saying this, but he wasn't what you would call a fine, upstanding citizen. He wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
baby.
Yeah.
He was, right? He wasn't a pregnant woman.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But on October 7th, 2023,
Mm-hmm.
Hamas did what they did. They killed 1,200 Jewish people,
Mm-hmm.
including putting babies in ovens, ripping pregnant women
Yeah.
open,
Wow.
celebrating it. There's videos of them calling their families and saying, "Well, I just killed a Jew," right? And so
Mm-hmm.
this is October 7th, 2023. The next day, the next day, instead of protests in support of the Jewish people, the next day, riots, and they're still going on
Exactly.
2 years later, right?
Yeah.
And saying things like, let's kill all the Jews,
Yeah,
let's
anti-Semitism has risen like
massively.
exponentially, like crazy in this, like after that. So it's so backwards. So backwards. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes no sense. So, and it just shows that, on the one hand, people are ignorant spiritually and biblically and socially.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but beyond that, people there just is a spirit of anti-Semitism. There's no way to explain that what has happened, the way that people have responded, right? Like in 1957, the year I
Mm-hmm.
was born, that's a long time ago. Golda Meir, who would become the prime minister of Israel, 1957, she published, there's a quote of her, you can find it online. We'll have peace when the Arabs stop killing our children. That was 1957.
Yeah.
When they love our children, when they love their children more than they hate ours. That's the way she
Mm-hmm.
said it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that was 1957. And I grew up in the 60s hearing stories of Jewish children being killed by terrorists. So what's happened like since 19 whatever, since whatever, in the recent years, it's
Yeah.
not because the Jews have misdone anything. It's literally demonic
Yeah.
anti-Semitism that's been
Yeah.
killing Jewish children since, or acknowledged, spoken about by Golda Meir in the year I was born.
By the way, I was going to ask about it because what if we think about like anti-Semitism, it doesn't make sense. Like you just said, when Jews are attacked, then people hate the Jews even more because, the media just like twists everything. But anyway, so like there's no logic to anti-Semitism. So what we believe is that it's spiritual. Like there's no other explanation to that. And so I'd like to ask you if you could give us like a little overview about, like what it speaks in the book of Daniel, like about the spiritual, you know what I'm talking about, the like Persia and the that spirit that.
Sure. Well, the book of Daniel, and obviously I've been teaching through Daniel now for a year and a half, and uh, so it's a phenomenal book. So Daniel is an unusual prophet in the Old Testament, in that his focus is actually on what's called the age of the Gentiles. That's really what he's talking about. He
Wow.
does not primarily speak to Israel. He does not primarily speak to the Jewish people. Um, his visions and his dreams and his prophetic utterances are primarily he goes through four kingdoms. He is brought as an exile in 605 BC to Babylon, and he serves under King Nebuchadnezzar. And one of the things that's really kind of interesting about Nebuchadnezzar, this is kind of interesting. In Daniel chapter 4,
Okay.
Daniel has, or Nebuchadnezzar, he in Daniel chapter 2, he has this dream, this vision, and he sees the statue and the golden head. And in Daniel 2, verse 38, Daniel says, "You are the head of gold, king of Babylon." And then there's the chest of the arms of silver, and that's the Medes and the Persians. So the Medo-Persia conquered Babylon. And when they conquered Babylon, Persia would be Iran today. When they conquered Babylon, they let the Jews, King Cyrus let the Jews go back. And then the next kingdom that Daniel talks about, the leopard kingdom, uh, or the goat, depending on the particular vision in the scripture. So that's the Greeks, and they come and they conquer um, the Persians, the Medo-Persia, and then the next kingdom is Rome, the four kingdoms, and then the next kingdom after that is actually the kingdom of God, the rock that's cut out from a mountain, but not by hands, and it comes in it causes the statue to fall to the ground and collapse. Well, what's interesting is that's Daniel chapter 2, and Daniel interprets the dream, the vision for Nebuchadnezzar. In Daniel chapter 4, Nebuchadnezzar has a dream, and Daniel interprets the dream, and it's a dream that's going to say judgment is coming upon you, Nebuchadnezzar, because you've got a lot of pride. And what's going to happen is you're like a tree, and you're going to be cut down to the ground, and you're going to be in that condition until you acknowledge that the Most High reigns. Daniel chapter 7. Until you acknowledge that the King of Israel, the God of Israel reigns. And Nebuchadnezzar then goes into 7 years of living like a wild animal, like eating grass and,
Yeah.
just like living with all kinds of like unbelievable mental illness. And after 7 years, he actually comes out of that moment, just like Daniel prophesied, and he acknowledges that the Most High reigns. Okay. And here's the cool, really interesting thing. First, it's 7 years. And second, he comes out of it and acknowledges that the God of Israel reigns. And he
Mm-hmm.
and gives the kingdom to whoever he wants. he praises God. He actually praises the God of Israel.
Yeah.
We have good reason, therefore, to believe that Nebuchadnezzar's probably saved,
True.
probably got into heaven. Now,
Yeah.
what's so amazing about that is how long was Nebuchadnezzar like judged like that, like a wild animal?
Mm-hmm.
7 years.
Yeah.
Well, the Talmud brings out that Rashi is actually the guy who said it, not the Talmud, excuse me. Rashi brings out that the 7 years are really significant because it was 7 years to build the temple, and Nebuchadnezzar is the one that destroyed the temple. So the
Wow.
one who destroyed the temple,
Mm-hmm.
right? 7 years of judgment, and then he gets saved. Now, what I see in that is okay, I do believe Israel needs to fully respond to everything Hamas is doing.
Mm-hmm.
They need to respond against Hamas the same way that the United States responded against the Nazis. I would make the statement that Hamas is more evil than the Nazis.
Yeah.
Okay, the Nazis tried to hide what they did, but
Yes.
Hamas celebrated it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, but if Nebuchadnezzar could get saved, could Hamas get saved? There's an interesting chapter, and I'll actually talk about this
Mm-hmm.
at our Hanukkah service in December 2025. But there's a chapter in Second Maccabees that shows that Antiochus Epiphanes gets
Mm-hmm.
saved.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's like nobody ever talks about that, but he gets saved. So this idea, right? But he gets right, and it's very clear in the chapter. He gets right with the God of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And he still dies. God still judges him, and he dies. But
Yeah.
he's clearly, you look at what he wrote, what he says, what's recorded, and if
Mm-hmm.
we can believe, Book of Maccabees is in Second Maccabees, they're not in the Bible, but they are
Mm-hmm.
how we know about Hanukkah. If we can believe this,
Yeah.
then Antiochus Epiphanes, the bad guy, he gets saved. So there's actually hope for
Yes.
Hamas and those
It's like
wicked,
Paul,
evil.
right?
Yeah,
Like
totally.
he persecuted, I think he killed some believers, but the Lord just switched his life around. So yes, there is hope. And we got a question here. It's in Portuguese and I'll translate. So it's gonna be like one of the last questions for today. I wish we could continue because this like we have yeah, there's so much to talk about. But um so why does anti-Semitism is still so rooted within the church? Why do you think?
I
That's
think that what's happened is um, number one, the church does not talk about its history. They don't want to. People don't like to talk about the bad things of their past.
mm-hmm,
Number two, I think that the church had to develop doctrine
mm-hmm,
in its early days to explain or wanted to develop doctrine. And so many of the church's doctrines are built upon a replacement theology and anti-Semitism.
mm-hmm,
For example, what were the Crusades about? The Crusades were about the church saying that all of the promises made to Israel now belong to us.
mm-hmm.
Well, therefore, what did the church do? It went back to Jerusalem. It
Mm-hmm.
gathered the Jews together in
Yeah.
Jerusalem. It put them all in a synagogue and it burned the synagogue to the ground. Now, the church isn't going to talk about that, but the
Mm-hmm.
church has this replacement theology doctrine, the idea that Jews are less than human, um, is it's amazing, okay. I'm not down on the Catholic Church. I actually love the Catholic Church a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll say some things about Catholicism here in a moment.
Okay.
I love the Catholic Church. Let me say some positive before I point this out.
Yeah.
Okay, um, in fact, the Catholic Church has things going for it that the Protestant Church really needs to wake up to and listen to.
Okay.
For example,
Mm-hmm.
the Catholic Church has a high view when it comes to the sanctity of the human being. And that's why the Catholic Church is down on, for example, abortion.
Mm-hmm.
or that's why the Catholic Church is strong on a man and a woman being in marriage.
Uh-huh.
And like if you go to Germany in World War II, Munich was a Protestant city, and almost no Jews survived the Protestant city of Munich during the Holocaust.
Wow.
But Berlin, the capital, was a Catholic city, and something like 3,000 Jews survived in Berlin. Because what you've got is you've got a religion in Catholicism that has a high view of humanity. And this explains why, I think,
Mm-hmm.
Protestants will criticize Catholicism for having a works-centered theology. Well, the reason they have a work-centered theology, and I don't agree with their work-centered theology, but but who does those works? People. And if you have a high view of humanity, then you're going to have a high view of the works that people do, and that's
Yeah.
the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
If you go over to the Protestant Church, in the early United States days, the church, there were two brands of Protestantism. One was the Puritists and the Pietists, and the other were the more Lutheran type Protestants. And the Puritans and the Pietists had what was called the Protestant work ethic. Works mattered.
Mm-hmm.
But in the 1920s, millions, just many people, not Jews, many people immigrated from Germany to the US. And when they came from Germany to the US, in fact, there were so many Germans that came to the US that there was actually a bill in Congress that would make German the official language of the US. It didn't pass, but there was a
Wow.
bill. There were that many Germans coming over. So when these Lutheran Christians came to the US, the result was that form of theology supplanted the Pietists and the Puritans. And we no longer have the Protestant work ethic. We now have this form of theology that says, and I'm answering the question of why is it still in the church, that
Uh-huh.
question there. So we now have this form of theology that says you're saved by grace and works don't matter at all.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah,
that's another
exactly.
ditch, the idea that works don't matter at all. They do matter. And so if you're going to say works don't matter at all, but who does the works? People. And if works don't matter, then people have less significance, and that's how you can end up with a theology that
Yes.
allows for a Holocaust because people don't matter. And
Mm-hmm.
um, so what has happened is the church has developed this doctrine
Mm-hmm.
of works don't matter. And it is kind of interesting. I'm going to this. The reason I wanted to say some positive things about the Catholic Church as I answered
Mm-hmm.
that question, and I hope I'm not rambling, but the reason I wanted to do all that is because until 1962, the Catholic Church had a doctrine that's called deicide. Deicide was the doctrine that said that Jews killed God. We
Oh
killed
yeah.
the Son of God,
Mm-hmm.
deicide. Well, and this will show how whether you're a Protestant or a Democrat, or excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
or a Catholic, this view of the Jew is off. Okay, deicide
Yeah.
was this doctrine that said that the Jews, and it's still prevalent in among parishioners and a lot of Protestant preachers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this idea that Jews killed the Son of God. Well, you know who actually killed? I was going to say, obviously, Jesus said, "No man takes my life. I have the power to lay."
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
But
And
if you want to blame a human, if you want to blame a human, like I don't want
all
to
of
do that,
us.
but if you want to do that, okay, then how did Jesus die?
Exactly, for
On a
all of
cross,
us. Yeah.
right? And a cross, isn't that the Roman form
Mm-hmm.
of death penalty?
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't it be more accurate to say, if you're not going to say that God, no man takes my life, if you're going to stray from John 10:18 and blame a group of people, wouldn't it make more sense to say that the people responsible for the killing of Jesus are the Romans? And
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't that make the Roman Catholic Church a bit hypocritical to blame the Jews? I'm going to go right back to, I'm glad they got rid of that doctrine in 1962, not that long ago.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm going to go right back to who really killed killed Yeshua. Jesus was really clear on that. No man takes my life. I have the power to lay it down, and I have the power to take it back up again. This commandment I have received from the Father. It was God's plan from the beginning. Jesus Christ crucified from the foundations of the world. So before
Yes.
God said, let there be light, in God's plan, Jesus is already crucified. Everything is built on the cross. Revelation 13:8, Revelation 17:8. Everything's built on the cross. And you can't blame the Jew, you can't blame the Catholics, and replacement theology is demonic, and anti-Semitism is demonic. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all because God chose the Jew. They are the chosen people.
Mm-hmm.
And since God chose the Jew, therefore Satan has his finger on the Jew. And there you've got your spiritual war right there.
Yes, so true, so true. This was so good. Can I ask a little final question? Just before we introduce Dr. Lisa Worley, I see you there. Very excited. So my question is how, like, do you have any tips, any advices on how, like, someone who's recognizing the twisted theology in their church or in someone's speech, like how would they engage that? Do you have any tips?
I do. Thank you for asking that question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think it's reasonable to think that what happened in Germany in the Holocaust
Mm-hmm.
could have been prevented if the confessing church, this is just historical fact, if the
Yes.
confessing church had just spoken up.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have is I was thinking about this earlier today. The church has got some people who are just full-blown anti-Semites. But
Mm-hmm.
it also has people, and when I say full-blown, it's like they're theological and practical
Mm-hmm.
anti-Semites. And then we have some, it's not one or the other, but we also have some that are not necessarily practical anti-Semites, but they're theological anti-Semites. Or they're not theological, but they're practical. They're one or the other. And it's not like you're either this first group or you're the second group. It's a continuum. And then you have other people who just they don't even know what they're doing. They're just living off
Yeah.
the doctrine they've been taught. I
Uh-huh.
think that what needs to happen is people who love God need to speak up.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to speak up. They need to constantly be bringing this up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how did America get rid of slavery?
Mm-hmm.
It got rid of slavery because God-loving people, the church,
Yeah.
would not give up. And the church is responsible for the abolition of slavery. And people in the church need to be speaking to their pastors and insisting
Yeah.
that the church speak to this issue. One of the things that bothers me, and it bothers me a
Mm-hmm.
lot, is when I hear pastors try to put Israel and Hamas on some kind of moral equivalency. There is no moral equivalency. Imagine if we were to say in 1939, if we were to say, or 1943, we love all people. That's not what the church needed to say in 1943. What the church needed to say is, let's pray that America completely obliterate the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's really what and in fact, and this is interesting, near the end of World War II, the United States was dealing with the question of, do we really need to have an unconditional surrender from Germany, or can we get just a armistice? And the powers that be in the United States said, we cannot go for an armistice. We need an unconditional surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And this is brilliant. And here's why. And let me first, how was that implemented? It was implemented with the complete destruction of Nazi Germany and an unconditional surrender. And the same thing happened with Japan, a complete destruction, two nuclear bombs, and then an unconditional surrender because they saw what we could do if they, right? Okay, compare that to what happened with the Korean War. In North Korea and South Korea, this war was going on, and there was no unconditional surrender. And there was an armistice. Let's stop fighting. You know what? They're still fighting because there was no unconditional surrender. And so that war continues to this day. What Israel needs to do is whatever it takes to get this unconditional surrender, because then Israel if Israel wanted to drop nukes on Gaza, she would have dropped nukes on Gaza.
Yeah.
She doesn't. She doesn't want to do that. She doesn't, it's not the Jewish mindset to do that to people.
Hmm.
She could have if she wanted to, but she doesn't want to. And what Israel needs to do is to kill that philosophy that wants to kill them. And that's what the United States did in World War II
Hmm.
with both Germany and with Japan. And it's not what the United States did with North Korea. And today, North Korea has nuclear bombs. And if we
Hmm.
don't wake up, Iran will have nuclear bombs.
Okay. Thank you so very much, Pastor Greg. Thank you.
Thank you.
This was amazing. I wish we could continue for hours. There's so much
Well,
to
you're
like
about to have a great interview
to
with my
cover.
friend,
Yes,
Dr. Worley, and you're
yes,
going to be blessed.
yes. I will be transitioning to Dr. Lisa Worley. Is that the right way to say your name?
Yes, it depends on where I am.
Okay.
Dr. Lisa Worley at church, probably, and at school, but Burkhart Worley in my ministry. So it just depends.
Okay.
But I answered anything. You don't even have to call me doctor, just Lisa. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm seeing
I've
that
got
you
to go to another meeting, so, but
Bye,
thank
Pastor
you
okay.
Greg.
and God bless you. And I know this is
Thank you
going to
so
be great.
much. God
Bye.
bless you.
Bye bye.
Bye. Okay, so yeah, so I've seen that you're a TV and radio host.
Yes.
You just so you're an author. You have produced a documentary, and you have a ministry. So can you talk a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I've been leading a ministry that the Lord gave me called Pearls of Promise since
Hmm.
about 2000. It started in 2009, but we really weren't active until about 2012. And
Hmm.
so it's a ministry that helps women overcome past dysfunction in their lives. And we do that through books, blogs, now a
Hmm.
television show, radio, and conferences. We do a
Hmm.
conference every year. So that is Pearls of Promise and what we do with that. But the Lord called me later to more recently to do documentaries to fight anti-Semitism, which is the topic of the day.
Hmm.
Actually done
Yes.
3 documentaries to fight
Oh,
anti-Semitism, two of
wow.
which have
Okay.
won multiple awards in
Hmm.
film festivals. And so I see the film festivals as distribution. That's
Hmm.
why I enter them, and
Yeah.
because they'll put them out on their platform. And we just
Hmm.
had a chance to take our documentary that fights Holocaust denial to
Hmm.
Nashville, Tennessee/Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, where they played the documentary there at a screening, and it's going to be again played on a television station in Georgia. They got a
Hmm.
deal; they're going to
Wow.
play it there, and so it's played in Arkansas. And
Hmm.
anyway, the Lord is really just blessing
That's amazing.
documentary work. And this was a
Wow.
call of God that happened at TKU
Hmm.
in an anti-Semitism class. So, yeah,
Hmm.
I feel like I wear many hats, but really it's still helping the broken in many ways.
Yeah.
You got the broken women, then you got the broken. My father was Jewish, the broken
Hmm.
Jewish people because of so many years of dealing with this
Hmm.
hatred and the
Yeah.
anti-Semitism, which, as I'm sure Pastor Greg had talked about, it has grown exponentially, even in this
Yes.
country. 893% increase in
Wow.
the last 10 years.
Wow.
So I just
And
feel
even more after October 7th.
well,
Let's,
that's it. I mean,
yeah.
well, yes, it was that's part of the reason why it's at 893% because it's
Hmm.
really grown so much after what happened on October 7th, 2023.
Hmm.
So, but the interesting thing, Lauren, is
Yeah.
that when I went into the King's University,
Hmm.
I was thinking I would do leadership, a leadership tract, but the Lord had a
Okay.
different plan, and He said, "No, I didn't call you to do a doctorate in leadership. You're
Uh-huh.
supposed to go into Messianic Jewish studies." So I literally had to change course and go into this, and it's was the
That's
best thing that
amazing.
ever happened to me. Um,
Yeah.
and and I think it was all about this. I had a friend who's a Jewish Messianic Jew Jewish friend who said,
Uh-huh.
Lisa, when you went into Messianic Jewish studies and all this kind of stuff, I
Yeah.
thought, why? And then she saw that God sent me ahead because
Mm-hmm.
he knew what was going to happen on October 7th. He
Mm-hmm.
knew that
Wow.
this would be a critical problem
Yes.
today. And so he sent me ahead because I feel like what we're trying to do is trying to educate people about
Mm-hmm.
the Holocaust
Exactly.
and about anti-Semitism in general,
Mm-hmm.
and just try to turn people's attention to the Jewish people in a positive way. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're human beings who have been
Right.
so hurt
Yes.
by what has occurred over the years, and I can tell you more about that from an institute I
Yeah.
every year. And I want to go. I know you probably have other questions, but
Oh,
I
and feel
felt
free.
okay. So I went the
Yeah.
last 2 summers. I went to a global the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. It took me a while to get that name right, but I
Okay.
went there the last 2 summers at the University of Oxford with a lot of scholars from all over the world who
Mm-hmm.
study, who might have a class on anti-Semitism, or
Mm-hmm.
many of them were Jewish, traditionally Jewish. And while there, I've just felt the pain that
Mm-hmm.
they experienced. Many of them had relatives who had died in the Holocaust, or they'd
Wow.
experienced
Yes.
anti-Semitism. They literally have a resilience group that meets regularly just to talk about some of the wounds they've experienced today
Yeah.
from people in on college. A lot of them are on college campuses where a lot of the anti-Semitism is happening today.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to witness, and I think the Lord wanted me to feel their pain
Mm-hmm.
because even though my dad was Jewish, he died before I was born, so I didn't really grow up with all of the Jewish traditions.
Yeah,
And
no, like,
yeah,
did
I
you have
wasn't in
any
a synagogue.
Jewish customs
I
growing up?
didn't do any of that growing up.
Okay.
It was the Lord supernaturally that brought me back. A lot of Jewish people who become believers in Yeshua,
Mm-hmm.
they start out Jewish and then they find the Messiah and they come together like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I started out Christian,
Yeah.
a nominal Christian until I gave my heart to the Lord and then rededicated my life. But then the Lord calls me back in Israel in 2014 to my Jewish
Wow.
heritage. He basically
Uh-huh.
said my Jewish father died, but my Jewish roots never died. And I'm
Wow.
like, what do I do with that? I don't know what to do with that. But he showed me, obviously, and
Yeah.
it's like these two worlds have connected.
Mm.
And so I feel very Jewish now. I feel my heart is
Okay.
Jewish.
Yeah.
I want to help the people of my heritage, even if they don't acknowledge my Jewishness,
Mm-hmm.
because traditional Jews will say, "Well, you're Christian, you're not Jewish anymore." They'll
Yeah,
just say that.
exactly.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't feel that way, and I'm just gonna. I've taken just a directive from the Lord to help fight this hatred.
Praise God. That's amazing. I was gonna ask about like the documentary that you mentioned. I think you just said there was three. I know about one,
Yeah.
which was about the Holocaust denial.
Uh-huh.
And I was just wondering what took you exactly to that specific subject, like the Holocaust denial, because there's so
Well,
many things that could be explored. Yeah, if you could tell us a bit about it.
I call this writing the God wave, Lauren. I just leave my life in his hands and he directs the steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after we finished and we had a documentary before this one called Terror in Toulouse, Has the Community Recovered? That's a whole nother story if you want to hear it at some point.
Yeah.
But as far as their blood cries out, it actually started at the ISGAP Institute that we just spoke about. I met a gentleman named Marcus Roberts. He was preserving the graves of the Holocaust on the island of Alderney. A lot of people don't realize that the English Channel had camps, German camps on them during the Holocaust,
Wow.
both Alderney and
Mm-hmm.
Guernsey. England, mainland, couldn't protect those islands, so they just gave them up. And they really like to cover that up and not really talk about that because it's
Yeah.
like, you know,
Shame.
with the Germans, or there's shame. So Marcus said after he knew about Terror and Toulouse, and he said, Lisa, you should do a documentary on me. And I said, oh, yeah, well, we'll see. I just come off the other one. It's a
Yeah.
lot of money and a lot of travel, a lot of things to
Uh-huh.
do for a documentary, right?
Uh-huh.
I said, all right, I'll think about that. It's one of many ideas that I were percolating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after that institute, someone else I'd met at that institute who's a Middle East terrorism expert who lives in New York City, and she worked for the American Jewish Committee, and we became kind of friendly. And she sent me a WhatsApp message and said, Lisa, do you know who Father Patrick Dubois is? And I said, uh, no. And she goes, well, you should do a documentary on him.
Wow.
And so I said, I thought, well, I'll look him up and maybe, because he was
Mm-hmm.
preserving the graves of the Holocaust. He was identifying mass graves of the Holocaust in Eastern Europe, and he'd been doing that for the last 20 years. And so, it intrigued me, but I have to hear it from God.
Uh-huh.
So a week later, I get an email from King's University.
Okay.
And she said, Lisa, we don't know. It was Gianna Fields. And she goes, we don't know why you were left off of the email list for events at UT Dallas, the
Mm-hmm.
Ackerman Center. But there's a speaker coming there we think you might be interested in. And so I get this email, and it's Father Patrick Dubois,
Wow,
one
that
week
was
after
God.
told to look into him. And I said, all right, I get it. I said, I'm
Yeah,
going. And so I signed
three
up.
times.
I went and I said, Father Patrick, I bought his book and I read it cover to cover. It's called Holocaust by Bullets for anyone who's listening.
Mm-hmm.
It's a powerful book of all his research and what he found over there in Eastern Europe. And so I said, Father Patrick, have you ever had a documentary done on you? And he goes, no, but we want one. I said, all right, well, and I told him, and see, Terra and Toulouse had won so many awards. We won over 50 International Film Festival awards with that one. So I had some
Amazing.
credibility
Yeah.
going into this meeting with Father Patrick. And so
Mm-hmm.
we had a Zoom meeting with him and his one of his director of the Holocaust Museum in Guatemala, and he's also his assistant director, I believe. I may have his title wrong, Marco Gonzalez. And we just met on a Zoom and we made a plan. And
That's
so the plan involved, but Father Patrick said, I don't want you to do it on what were our expeditions because we're almost done with that. He
mm-hmm.
wants you to do it on what we're doing with the research, like how we're teaching people about
Mm-hmm.
what we found. And so I went up to Georgetown University where he's a professor. I interviewed him up at Georgetown, and that went exceedingly well, the interview with him. And then I also went to Guatemala City where they have a Holocaust museum and they're teaching 20,000 children per year about
Yeah.
the Holocaust,
Wow.
which I find fascinating. And
Mm-hmm.
so in addition, at the same time as all this is happening, there's the Ackerman Center had a Holocaust conference, scholars conference. And I was told by Dr. David Patterson, who is he's a scholar on the Holocaust, worldwide scholar. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, Lisa, you should bring a camera to the Ackerman Center. You should bring a camera to that conference. I said, well, maybe I should bring a camera. It's like God has to
Yeah.
lead me. And
Yeah.
so I hired a videographer. We went there. We got Dr. Patterson talking about Holocaust denial. We got Dr. Charles Small, both of them powerful interviews. We got my friend Rosian Zerner, who you may have met, who's a Holocaust survivor
Yes.
in
I
Dallas.
did.
We got
Yeah.
all three of them talking about Holocaust denial. So this is one part. Father Patrick's another part. Marco Gonzalez down in Guatemala City and what they're doing there is one part. And then I remembered my friend Marcus. I said, Marcus, who does almost the same thing in
Okay.
Alderney. And I said, Marcus, I think maybe I'm supposed to do this documentary on you. I'm going to include you in a documentary. And so we worked it all out. I flew with him to Alderney and we did the interview. It was a beautiful day that day. And we talked about what went on there in the camps at Alderney. And this all came together in one documentary called Their Blood Cries Out. I kept thinking about the Bible passage
Yeah.
where Cain slew Abel,
Yes.
and God says to Cain, what have you done? Where is my where is
You done to
Abel?
your brother?
Yeah, your brother. Where is your brother Abel? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
I had it down earlier. And he goes, his blood cries out to me from the ground. I
Yes.
thought about these graves, these Holocaust graves, and they're crying out to be remembered.
Yes.
Don't forget the Holocaust. Never forget. Here's the thing, Lauren, 20, get this, 20% of young people 18 to 29 think the Holocaust is a myth. That's in the United States. They think it's a myth. 20%.
Unbelievable. I thought like it was dying, like, this was gone, but it's still like so. That's what I was gonna ask you. Like, is it still so strong? Like the Holocaust denial is so strong nowadays, and you're saying 20%, which is a lot.
I think it's the younger generation. I think it's also the propaganda. There's a lot of
Hmm.
anti-Jewish propaganda, and
Hmm.
they're saying, "Oh, the Holocaust wasn't that bad. Not that
Yeah.
a
Even
million
now.
people died, not six, and it was natural causes." They're trying to twist the truth.
Hmm.
And if you watch the documentary, I think you did. Um, one of the reason why they're doing this is because the people that are doing this and they're
Hmm.
twisting the truth are because they don't like the Jews. They hate the Jews, and so they're trying to take away this very important and sad part of the Jewish history. They're trying
Yes.
to take this away from them.
Yeah. And
And
they're
so,
still
go
doing
ahead.
it too. Like it happened to the October 7th attack as well. Like they're trying to say it was
Right.
fake, even though Hamas was showing it, like broadcasting, like they're still trying to say it's fake and twisting everything. So yes. So if people want to watch your documentary about Their Blood Cries Out, is it like free for everyone to
Yeah,
watch?
you can just go to our YouTube channel, which is Pearls of Promise Ministries, and you can just find it there and watch it there. We've been on other platforms, but the best place to find it is right there at the YouTube channel. And so we'd
Hmm.
love for people to see it. I think it'll be eye-opening for many, and
Yeah.
it's just a reminder that the graves don't lie.
Hmm.
You've got to understand that this all happened. It's
Hmm.
very sad what happened on the island of Alderney. Marcus really goes into some of the ways that maybe they disposed of people who
Hmm.
were on the island. So that's something very important to, um, just to understand. It was very
Hmm.
cruel, and I agree. I was listening to Pastor Greg or Dr.
Hmm.
Stone,
Yeah.
or for this purpose, Dr. Stone.
Right.
I was listening to him when he was on, and one of the things that I will agree with is that Hamas to me could be even worse, than what happened during the Holocaust. I mean,
Yes.
some of the things they did with the babies and violating women, and
Terrible.
you know,
It was,
there's
yeah,
so
I
much.
don't even like to remember, but at the same time, we
Mhm.
have to because this can't continue. I also have a question to you about, I think I remember you did a case study about like the attacks and hostage situation.
At
We
Congregation
had,
Beth Israel.
yes, we had one happening at Congregation Beth Israel, which is like super close to us,
Yes.
right?
In
Yeah.
Colleyville. Yeah, I can tell you all about that. That was my doctoral project.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to know about that?
I would like to know like your findings,
Okay.
if you see any patterns of why the people attack, like what the attackers had in
Yes.
mind. Mm-hmm.
Well, I looked at the emotional and physical impact. I looked at the security impact. I looked at the community impact
Mm-hmm.
of what happened at Congregation Beth Israel.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, anytime I also looked into just general hostage attacks. There's not a lot of research on synagogue attacks and how it impacts the victims. This is a first of its kind type of research. And
Mm-hmm.
so one of the things I just found out is very similar to hostage, but there are physical ailments that happen. You can't, like, for example, the rabbi at the time, he couldn't sleep, and he had to have help with sleep. And he still, at the time of the interview, like a year later, he still was having trouble with sleep.
Yeah.
During the scenario, um, well, let me go back. One of the hostages said that he was jumpy afterwards. Like when he was in the synagogue, he would always look around. In fact, he was packing a gun, and he was told,
Um,
"Got to quit doing that." You got to quit doing that because he was so afraid that this could
The
again.
PTSD.
Yeah, PTSD. And
Mhm.
so they went through waves of emotions. Can you imagine? They were held hostage for 11 hours. And so there were times, and this is so indicative of hostage studies, there were times when they felt like it was all going to work out, they're going to get out. And but as the time wore on and he felt like he was the attacker
Mhm.
was not getting what he wanted, which was he wanted a radical Islamist released from a nearby prison. And let me finish my thought though. Once started thinking that he wasn't going to get what he wanted, that's when
Mhm.
he got more agitated, and that's when it got
Mhm.
hairy. That's when they began to think about, I may die today,
Yes.
telling their loved ones that they loved them. He, for some reason, let them keep their cell phones, and they'd go to the bathroom and like text their wives and their loved ones about it. He did show some mercy toward one of the hostages, and he
Mhm.
was an older one who had diabetes, and he let him go
Mhm.
early. He released him, which was kind.
Only one.
So, but and he was on the phone with his own family and they were trying to talk him out of it. But why did he even do this? I think that
Yeah.
was one of your questions. Why did he cross the Atlantic from England? Why did he come all the way over here,
Oh, I
pick,
came all the way from
yeah,
England. I
to
didn't
this
know that
little
part.
synagogue in Colleyville, Texas, and proceed to take four members of the synagogue hostage. First of all, I see the God part of this is that it was still after not too long after the pandemic, and
Mhm.
it was a really cold day, and so I think
Mhm.
they lost some people that day because of that, and
Mhm.
so they didn't have but four people. That was
Oh,
all they
yeah, so God was protecting, like
had.
it could be packed.
Could have been packed.
Mhm.
And so the reason why he did this is because he wanted a radical Islamist released from a nearby prison, and that synagogue was the closest. He believed an old Jewish trope
Mhm.
that Jews control the world
Yeah.
and that they, or one of them could call up President Biden
Oh
and
my.
get this radical Islamist released from prison. That's what he thought. And that's why he came all the way across. And that is why in my paper,
Yeah.
I gave the history of anti-Semitism because
Mhm.
my contention was that this was just one more example
Yeah.
of a long history of anti-Semitism.
Hmm. And just this belief of the Jews control the world. If they did, they wouldn't be persecuted right now.
That's right.
The media
No.
wouldn't be just twisting everything against them, so it doesn't even make logical sense. I'm looking here. We have a question. It's in Portuguese, so I'll translate.
Okay.
So the question is basically if you believe that information about the Holocaust should be taught by kids and I don't know, like what age do you think it should be taught or if
Well, they're
yeah.
teaching about the Holocaust. That's why we went to Guatemala. And these are school, middle school, middle
Mhm.
school kids that were coming
Mhm.
in to maybe high school, coming into the Holocaust Museum, and they were teaching them about Father Patrick's research in Eastern Europe. And so they would, have pen and paper, and they were taking notes. So I think elementary might be a little too young, but I would say
Mhm.
middle school. One of
Mhm.
the things we're doing is we have started a website called
Okay.
abridgeoflove.com, and we are creating a curriculum. I hope to have it up in August
That's
about the
amazing.
history of anti-Semitism. And then we have other
Mhm.
people who are going to create pieces on the Holocaust and why should we love the Jewish people? We're going to do one of those things, one of those
Oh,
kind of segments.
okay.
So, and then
Uh,
also helping our church, Gateway Church, to create curriculum. I just finished a history of the Holocaust study, like a class. And
great. Is it gonna be one of the equipped classes?
yes, I think so. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not really we had some changes, not really equipped anymore, but it will be under, I guess, the Gateway Center for Israel Arm.
Hmm.
That it's Pastor Greg's vision to have classes for maybe the
Yeah.
Jewish believers there and,
Mm-hmm.
and Gentiles too. I mean, I think anybody that would want to take them. So we're doing a 4-part series on the Holocaust, and so I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do a whole class on Holocaust denial.
Wow.
So I just think that's important because we have to see
Mm-hmm.
the signs of it and be able to know how to refute it. So what age will take those classes? Probably adults, but I don't think it's too early, and I really think it's important to not take the Holocaust. You know, we don't
Yeah.
want to cancel culture with the Holocaust. We want to have the Holocaust included in our history books. You know, a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
we talk about World War II and
Yeah.
we don't include we don't talk about the Holocaust. We talk about the Allies but we don't really include that part of it. And so I think it needs to be a very important part of
Yeah.
Holocaust
A
education.
huge part of
So,
it.
you know, one of the things that I included in my research was the anti-Semitism of our church fathers.
Mm-hmm.
Went to
Yeah.
seminary, you know, this is a doctoral program, but I went to seminary and we
Mm-hmm.
studied the church fathers. We studied Tertullian, we studied Justin Martyr, we
Mm-hmm.
studied Gregory of Nyssa.
Yeah.
I studied Augustine. Guess what? Nothing was ever said about their anti-Semitism. Not one word. I didn't even know
Yeah, we
about
don't know about it. Yeah.
it.
I've been Christian my whole life and I had no idea about it until I got to
Right.
TKU.
These are the people that
Mm-hmm.
founded the Christianity in many ways. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they set some structure to it.
Yeah.
Well, and of course Martin Luther, the worst. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was just absolutely shocked when I did that kind of research on them. You know, they did a lot of good. I don't want to take totally away from them, and that's one of the things I needed to beef up a bit when when I was in my defense. They said you need to beef that up. You know, you need to say something because they did a lot of good too. So they did, but this was a negative about
Exactly.
them. And
Mm.
so the problem with this is that this set a foundation for anti-Semitism. So that's
Yes,
why we still see
that is
some
too going
people
on.
looking back to that, right? Church fathers, if
Mm-hmm.
they study the history, they study the church fathers, they look
Mm-hmm.
back and they use that as rationale to be anti-Semitic.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have a question about like every work that you do to help protect or study about the Jewish people and the Holocaust. Did you ever encounter resistance from others? Like, have you ever, encountered any resistance on the way?
Yeah, you know, we've had a couple of negative comments when we post, you know, like on YouTube and stuff like that. That's where I see it the most. I haven't, even though I've had a Jewish father and I'm in this lane, and of course it could change tomorrow, but I
Mhm.
haven't had a lot of people saying negative things to me personally.
Okay.
So not a lot of resistance. I will say some film festivals reject the I know they're well done, but they
Okay.
reject them because it probably isn't comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my documentaries are very truthful, and
Yeah.
we had a lot of graphic video from the Holocaust, and I
Mm-hmm.
did that intentionally. And I
Mm-hmm.
put a disclaimer at the beginning of it because I want people to see the truth.
Mm-hmm.
This is what happened. Would you want this to happen to your child or your father or your mother? This is what happened. Come
Yeah.
on. Let's be realistic. This is a human being.
Uh-huh.
These are human beings. And we should treat human beings with respect.
Yes. 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 What would you say are the dangers of anti-Semitism?
Ah, well,
So many.
there's so
But
many
yeah.
dangers. It depends on the level of anti-Semitism that you're talking about. You know, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of anti-Semitism is defacing buildings and putting, you know, anti-Jewish statements up there. And from
Mm-hmm.
the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. But do you understand what from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free means? It's the whole land. It's not just a two-state solution. They want it
Wiping them
all.
out.
They want to wipe them out. They
Mm-hmm.
want it all. And so that's what that means. And so okay, so we poor Palestinians, we need to give them a place to live, but then the Jewish people don't have any place, you know? And so they've actually given up more land than what God gave them.
Mm-hmm.
God gave them more parameters, you know, for the land,
Yeah.
a bigger perimeter. And so they've given up a lot of it already. So that is what that means. So Yeah, okay, words, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words can never harm me. Like words, I don't like words. I don't like anti-Semitic words. Social media is a place where a lot of people are saying very anti-Semitic things. But for example, I studied what happened at Pittsburgh at Tree of Life Synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get the year wrong. It was either 2018, I think it was 18, not 19, but I might be wrong on that. I think it was 2018,
Mm-hmm.
where the this anti-Semite Bowers was on social media saying horrible things about the Jewish people, really, setting the stage for what he was going to do, and nobody took him seriously on it. I think it was the social media site Gab, and so
Mm.
he went and he murdered 11 people, and so
Wow.
we got to, you do need to pay attention to the
Yes.
words. You
Yeah.
have to pay attention to the words
Mm-hmm.
because the words could end up, especially if they're threatening. You've got to. I think the FBI needs to get involved. You got to get the police involved.
Yeah. It
That's
all
where we can come in.
starts, sorry, excuse me. It all starts with the ideology, then it
Mhm.
goes to the heart, and
Right.
then action, right? So, yeah.
So yeah, so well, and so then there's physical. In our first documentary, The Resurgence of Anti-Semitism in the United States, we
Mm-hmm.
showed little thugs, I mean, these thugs knocking Hasidic Jews down in New York City, knocking their hat off, trying to run one over, throwing a brick at a Hasidic. This was true incidents of this is when it gets really like violent. Of course, then I think of Australia recently,
Yeah.
synagogue
Yes.
burnings and all the different things
Uh-huh.
that have happened there.
They try to
Well,
burn
this is when it goes over. Well, it's never right, but when
mm-hmm.
you cross that line and you
Mm-hmm.
start burning buildings and trying to kill people, this is
Yeah.
this has got to stop. And we got to take a stand, like Pastor Greg talked about the churches. If the Holocaust could have been prevented if the churches stood up. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I read and you may have read it in one of your classes, but a book by Rockmill Friedland called When Being Jewish Was a Crime. He was a Messianic Jew in
Mm.
Poland during the Holocaust.
Okay.
And he was like knocked down and, he wasn't treated any differently. He got out, but he wasn't treated any differently than the traditional Jewish people. But the point I'm trying to make on this is that the church turned their back on him. Church
Mm-hmm.
where he was attending and where he was worshiping, they were afraid of the German government. And so they said, we can't protect you. So this is the kind of thing. Sometimes it takes taking a hard stand.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and for those, sometimes people get afraid, and I read a really good book called Legacy of Hope by Avi Mizrachi with Kathy Macias, and it tells about one of like a Metropolitan Stephen. It also talks about Rabbi, I think. Oh, I forgot his name right now.
okay, makes me feel good. Younger than me, forgetting names.
Yeah,
Like
but
that
basically.
brain. Got it.
Basically, it tells the story of a rabbi and like a metropolitan from a church who they together built this strong relationship, friendship. And Metropolitan Stephen was very vocal and he used his influence in the church to go against anti-Semitism and talk with the government and then of Bulgari, right? Sorry, I'm from Brazil, just letting you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the Bulgarian government, and because he was very like vocal about it, and he was consistent in his advocacy for the Jewish people, then he was able to prevent a lot of Bulgarian Jews from being deported to Nazi Germany and being, like taken to death. So for us, sometimes people are afraid to be vocal, and that book really gave me strength to be vocal about it. We think like, oh, if we say anything, then people are gonna come against us. But well, and even so, we might still take our stand and be vocal about it, about like it's also about human rights. So, yeah, so I'd like to leave that legacy of hope. And then I have a question for you. Maybe it's a final question because we went a little bit over. I don't know.
Oh, no, I could go on and on.
Yes, and I loved it. We can
Okay,
definitely
but I'm
go on. You have like
happy
so
to
much to
answer any
talk. I'm
questions.
like,
Yeah.
oh Lord, I love it. Yes. So, my question is just, what would you like those who are watching us now and those who watch us later on YouTube, what would you like them to live with or impart to them?
I would say do what you can in your own sphere of influence, whether it's social media. I would love for you to take some of these documentaries and share them with your followers,
Okay, we'll
because
do.
this is a great way. The most recent one talks about Holocaust denial, and this is a great
Mhm.
way to get that word out to the people that you're connected with. If we
Mhm.
do that, we help each other and we
Yeah.
share. If you ever, Lauren, if you ever do a piece like this interview,
Mm-hmm.
you could share it on your social media
Yeah.
and have people watch it so that they can understand. There's so many people who really are, they've been, it's just a benign thing for them. They don't
Yeah.
understand the brevity of it.
Sometimes there's a lack of information. It's, yeah.
And I think that's the thing. We've got to get an awareness out there that this is happening right now. And now
Mhm.
it's happening in our country, in particular on the college campuses, which are
Mhm.
being funded, by the way.
Yeah.
ISGAP did a big study on this by Qatar, billions of dollars being flooded into the college campuses
Mhm.
and funding some of these groups that are anti-Jewish and
Mhm.
so anti-Semitic. So we've got to create an awareness and love our Jewish brothers and sisters and
Mhm.
help them out here. What if
Yeah.
somebody was coming against you? What if people decided they don't like Portuguese people?
Right?
Like
Just
they don't
for
like
being
people from
yourself, like you're
Brazil.
born a certain way and then people
Yeah.
hate you for no
What
reason.
if they started doing that and they started putting hate stuff out there?
Yeah.
What would your friends do? What would
Mhm.
the people in your community do? And
Mhm.
so that we have to think about, maybe sometimes we have to put ourselves in their shoes. What if it was you?
Yeah.
And it could be you. It
Mhm.
could be you one day.
Yeah.
And so I just think that we have to do everything we can and read up, keep up with the news. I keep up with all, I know this sounds kind of weird, but I keep up with the anti-Semitism news, like
I've
what's
been
happening
keeping
in the
up
world.
too.
What's
Hmm.
happening in the world? How can I refute this? Is there another piece that I need to do? Lord, show me what I need to do next, and how can I keep fighting this good fight?
Hmm. That's amazing. Thank you so much. I love talking with
Awesome.
you
Thank you,
and
Lauren.
all that you're doing. I'm like blessed by it and you're blessing many. Thank you for all. So, yes, I'll end this chat unfortunately. Thank you. And I'll add your information of your documentary, everything on the description of this video. Thank you for all of you watching. Have a blessed day. Bye
Thanks
bye.
so much, Lauren.